The night was calm. The sky above stretched like a dark velvet blanket, sprinkled with stars. On the empty highway, a lone car sped through the silence, its headlights cutting into the dark. Behind the wheel was Alana, a black woman in her 9th month of pregnancy. Her breathing was shallow, her hands clutching the steering wheel tight. Each minute felt longer than the last. Then, another contraction hit. Sharp. Sudden. Crushing. Her foot pressed harder on the accelerator. She wasn't thinking about the speed limit. She was thinking about survival, for herself and for the tiny life inside her. She whispered to herself, "Just hold on, just hold on." But her body betrayed her, reminding her with each wave of pain that the baby wasn't waiting for anyone. The hospital still felt so far away. The road seemed endless. Her husband, General Marcus, the man who had stood by her side through everything, was away on duty. That thought pierced her heart. She had never felt so alone. And then, flashing lights appeared in her rearview mirror. Red and blue. A police cruiser. Her heart sank. The siren screamed, commanding her to stop. Alana's chest tightened. She slowed down, easing her car to the side of the road, her eyes clouding with tears. "Not now. Please, God, not now." The officer stepped out of his vehicle, tall, heavy boots crunching against the gravel. His flashlight beams sliced through the night and landed squarely on Alana's face. She rolled down her window, her voice trembling. "Officer, please. I'm in labor. I need to get to the hospital." But his face didn't soften. His jaw clenched, his tone cold. "Step out of the vehicle. Now." Alana hesitated, her hands shaking. "Please, you don't understand, my baby." But the officer wasn't listening. His eyes narrowed as he scanned her, his expression filled with suspicion, not compassion. "You people always have excuses," he muttered under his breath. Humiliation burned inside her chest. Not only was she fighting for her child, she was fighting to be believed. Alana pushed open her car door slowly, every movement weighted with pain. She held her stomach, her face twisted with agony. The officer stepped closer, towering over her. "Do you know how fast you were going?" Her voice cracked. "Yes, I know, but I had no choice. My contractions, please, I'm begging you, let me go." Instead of sympathy, his lips curled into a smirk. "You think being pregnant puts you above the law? You think you can just break rules because you feel like it?" Alana's knees buckled. She gripped the door for balance, her eyes filling with tears. "I am telling you the truth. I swear." But the officer scoffed, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Save it. I've heard it all before. Do you really expect me to fall for this act?" The wind carried away her sobs, but nothing could hide her pain. On that lonely highway, she felt small, stripped of dignity, disbelieved, and trapped. Another contraction ripped through her body. This time, it was worse than before. Alana screamed, collapsing to her knees on the cold asphalt. Her hands pressed hard against her belly as tears streamed down her cheeks. The officer froze. His smirk disappeared, replaced with unease. He stepped closer, his voice uncertain now. "Wait, are you serious?" Alana couldn't even answer. The pain was too much. She cried out again, her voice echoing across the empty road. And then, it happened. A dark patch spread across the ground beneath her. Her water had broken. The officer's flashlight shook in his hand. For the first time that night, he realized the horrifying truth: she hadn't been lying. But his hesitation had cost precious minutes. The baby was coming, and there was no hospital in sight. Alana gasped for air, her body trembling. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, help me." The silence between them was deafening. And in that silence, the officer realized this was no longer about a traffic stop. It was a race against life itself. Alana's body trembled with pain, her cries echoing across the lonely highway. The contractions were coming faster, sharper, and there was no hospital in sight. The officer knelt beside her, panic flashing across his face. For the first time that night, the weight of the moment sank in, This wasn't about a speeding ticket anymore. This was about life. "Stay with me," he said firmly, his voice low but steady. "You're going to be okay. I won't let anything happen to you." He shrugged off his jacket, laid it on the grass, and gently guided Alana down. His training hadn't prepared him for this, but his heart wouldn't let him stand by. "Breathe, just breathe," he urged, keeping his tone calm, though his hands shook. Minutes passed like hours. The night air was filled with her gasps, his quiet encouragements, and then, suddenly, the piercing cry of a newborn split the silence. There, under the pale silver moonlight, Alana gave birth. Her tears mixed with sweat as she reached for her baby. The officer wrapped the child in his uniform shirt, cradling the fragile life with trembling hands before carefully placing the infant into Alana's arms. For a moment, all was still. The highway, once filled with fear, now carried the sound of new life. But then, headlights flooded the road. A convoy of military vehicles screeched to a halt. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready, faces tense, until they saw her. The officer stood up quickly, shielding Alana and the baby instinctively. But then he heard it, one soldier's voice ringing out. "Ma'am, General Marcus sent us. We're here for you." The officer blinked, stunned. He had no idea who she truly was. This wasn't just any woman in distress, this was the wife of one of the most respected generals in the entire nation. Alana was carefully lifted into a military vehicle, her newborn cradled gently against her chest. She turned back, her eyes meeting the officer's. Through her exhaustion, she whispered, "Thank you, you saved us." Days later, the story spread across the country. The woman who had given birth on the roadside was none other than the general's wife. And the officer who had once seemed strict and skeptical had, in the end, become her lifeline. In a national ceremony, the general himself shook the officer's hand, his voice proud and steady. "You did not see a race, you did not see a uniform, you saw a human life worth saving. For that, you will always have my respect." The crowd erupted in applause. The officer was promoted, receiving one of the nation's highest honors. From that day on, his name was remembered not as the men who stopped a car, but as the men who delivered life. And as for Alana, she sat rocking her baby in a quiet hospital room, whispering softly, "You came into this world in the most unexpected way, but you were met with courage, and you are my miracle." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to comment where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another powerful story like this.